Well, hello there and welcome back. My name is Stephanie Safarian and you're listening to episode 487 of Sustainable Minimalists. This is a listener-supported show about intentional and eco-friendly minimalist living. And on today's show, we are discussing the problems associated with big cleaning. So those mega corporations, they sell us these products. They use fear to get us to buy and to disinfect everything. But what are they not telling us? What are the potential problems associated with using and relying on these very powerful cleansers on the regular? So that's what we're doing today. Here to help me do that is Zach Kiefer. Zach is the president of eCloth. And if you've been paying attention for the last month, eCloth is a sponsor of this show. Zach's on the show to break down for us what we very likely don't know about big cleaning, what we should know, and how to be informed consumers in the cleaning aisle going forward. Zach, I'm so thrilled to have you on this show. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm thrilled as well. Really looking forward to talking about the world of cleaning.
The world of cleaning. It's something I do 24/7, it seems, with two children. They are so messy. How did you clean prior to joining eCloth? I'm guessing you're going to say that you clean like most of us. We've been trained to buy the big name products, clean with single-use disposable paper towels, perhaps, and then go on with our days. But you tell me, how did you clean before?
Yeah, before I joined eCloth, you're right. I would guess that I'm like most people out there. I go under my sink. I look for a spray. I look for a wipe. I look for whatever is under there and I go use it. I go to the big box retailers and I find a big, huge package of paper towels, wipes, cleaners, disinfectants, whatever it might be, and just use it. It's what I was trained by my parents, my grandparents. It's what I saw in commercials, and there was just no other way. That's just the way you did it. So for me, it was blindly following what our habits have been for a long time. And again, I really reset when I got to eCloth to really think consciously about it, as opposed to just blindly following.
I'm happy you mentioned blindly following there, because I have covered in the past on this show the fact that, especially when it comes to cleaning and laundry too, but so many of us just buy the products that our parents bought and our parents were buying the products that their parents bought. So it's just what we do. We buy the products, we clean the same ways. However, this is a show about mindful and intentional living. So I'm curious to know, in your opinion, why is it important that we question the way things have traditionally done? Why is it important that we ask ourselves, is the way that my parents cleaned, is that the way I want to continue cleaning? Like, why is it important to insert some intentionality into our cleaning?
I look at it and go back to my business career. And one of the things that I learned through business was one of the answers that likely is not going to be the right answer is because that's the way we've always done it. When that's the answer to a question, it's typically, but why are we doing things a certain way? Why is a process the certain way it is? Why do we buy things for this business the way we buy things? How do we produce them? Why do we produce them the way we produce them? And as I've looked at my evolution through eCloth and my cleaning routines, I go back to some of that business thought process of really in most aspects of life, we can say, but why? A lot of it's going to go back to our families, our upbringing. What were we surrounded by as we came up through life? And ultimately, that's going to frame and lead to certain intentionalities or just ways of being as we grow older. And so it's really hard to ask why. There's a lot of things in life, and cleaning is one of probably the least interesting things that we do, but we just have to do it. And so it's probably not one of those things you're going to ask why about. You're going to ask why about your job or your savings or your investing or your home living situation. But cleaning, you just do it. It certainly was something that never crossed my mind, obviously, before I started at eCloth.
Yeah. I'm thinking about my own childhood, Zach, as you're talking. And my mother, I grew up in a single parent household, and she did an amazing job. She did the best that she could. However, that said, so Mom, if you're listening, this isn't a dig, but there's plenty that went on in my 1980s and 1990s childhood that I'm not choosing to carry into my own children's childhoods. We ate it at fast food restaurants an awful lot. We watched so much TV, and like, no knocking fast food, TV, all of it. I'm just saying that the way I am choosing to raise my daughters is different. And I'll add to that and just say that there's more information now, 30 years later from my childhood. And so in the presence of new information, it's prudent to question whether the way that our parents did things are the ways that we want to continue, right? I say all that to say, when it comes to cleaning, I am in a place where I love to question everything, love to question whether the items that have been marketed to me are aligned with my values. And in the cleaning space and in the laundry space too, I must say, the conventional products are not always aligned. So that brings me, Zach, that's a long way of asking, what's wrong with just buying the big name cleaner? What are they not telling us? Go for it.
Again, it's a huge question. I think going back to your kind of comments on not carrying things through life, if we're going to say hi to our parents on the show, Mom and Dad, as much as I would love to carry it forward for those. I was born and raised in Kirkland, Washington. You might know of a brand called Kirkland potentially. So I went to certain retailers and we loaded up on full boxes of candy bars, 24 packs of soda. Our house was known as the snack and candy house of all my friends, and we devoured a lot of candy bars and a lot of Coke. And so it was part of my childhood that I don't practice today. And so that being said, not carrying that forward through life, and then answering your question to, again, where are we potentially not informed as much as maybe we should be as consumers, or where are those questions that we ask? The easiest example that I go to for a lot of people is in the disinfecting wipe space. A lot of the last 4 years for all of us have been very concerning and fearful, and the unknown of what's out there, what could harm us, how can it harm us, how do we keep our families safer, how do we keep our kids safer, how do we keep our parents safer. There's a lot of just kind of opportunities for organizations to potentially take advantage of that. So if you look at disinfecting wipes, I think that this is the prime example for any listener out there that has a bottle of disinfecting wipes. Go get it and turn it around and read the backside of the label. If you read the backside of a disinfecting wipe container, it just starts the rabbit hole of, oh my gosh, what do I not know? What do I need to go research? Do these things actually work? Did we actually disinfect anything during COVID? I don't know. And I would question, again, I look back at my own self. I started with eCloth. I started about a year and a half after COVID started. And I now look back at it and I think, gosh, I don't think I disinfected anything. Cleaning, definitionally, is the process of removing things from surfaces. The process of disinfecting is the process of killing things on a surface. That's step one of, we as a society, if you look at national advertising campaigns, if you look at a lot of the bottles in your cleaning aisle, a lot of them will say multi-purpose cleaner. But then it will say it kills 99.9% of bacteria. So is it a cleaner or is it a disinfectant? It's a good question to ask. If we go back to the wipes container and we look at the directions on how to disinfect, most of them will say something very closely to, for visibly soiled surfaces, clean first. So then you say, wait a minute, I thought I am cleaning with my wipes. What are you saying clean first? I'm so confused. When the top of it says for daily cleaning and disinfecting, now you're telling me that I have to clean first. So do I just use more of these wipes? What do I do? I don't know. Anyways, so let's continue. So to disinfect, for visibly soiled surfaces, clean first. Wipe surface. Use enough wipes for treated surface to remain visibly wet for 4 minutes. So I go back to an earlier statement I made that said, when I started with e-cloth and I went down this rabbit hole of cleaning versus disinfecting, I had an epiphany moment of, oh, I don't think I disinfected anything during COVID. What did I leave visibly wet for 4 minutes? I have no idea. And then you go to a restaurant once you realize that, and you watch everybody at a restaurant, you're like, uh-oh, they're not leaving that table wet for 4 minutes. What are they doing with all that colored spray? I have no idea. The process of disinfecting, you have to have contact time. So the 4 minutes, the visibly wet for 4 minutes, it typically ranges from 4 to 10 minutes, depending on the disinfectant, depending on the spray, depending on the wipe. It's all based on research that has to be approved and run through the EPA. So there's a lot of work scientifically that's done to show that that amount of contact time actually kills the bacteria on the surface. So my question to you and to the listeners would be, if we critically think about it, with disinfectants, have we really disinfected anything, much less COVID, let's say our lives?
I mean, that's a very great rhetorical question, Zach. And I'll just add another one. Do we need to disinfect?
I was going to say, that's just the rabbit hole is wide open. So then that's been my process. So I started with that label and I said, oh gosh, I got to start doing research. So then you get into that exact question of, do we really need to disinfect anything? Or is it very seldom that we need to disinfect anything? Or is it every day we need to disinfect anything? There's a lot of different opinions out there. There's also a lot of scientific research that's being performed as we speak to help us as humans understand what it means if we use disinfectants all the time, if we use chemical sprays all the time, if we don't use them all the time. It's a big, huge, ugly question that is really hard to really rip apart and understand. But this is Zach speaking for Zach. There is enough research quickly coming out to show that there are definitely impacts that are not positive. We don't know negatively where it goes, but there are definitely impacts that we should be looking further out as humans through scientific research. Specifically, where I have been doing a lot of my digging is around the gut biome. There's a ton of work in the scientific community going into the gut biome research right now. So when we look at disinfecting specifically, when you disinfect properly, you're killing all bacteria. So there's so much good bacteria in the world that we need, that our body, if we don't have it, it doesn't know how to function correctly. And there's more scientific research coming out about this on lack of gut biome diversity and what that potentially means for us as humanity. And so I'm just waiting to see where NIH, where some of these other studies come in to give us better data points to make informed decisions.
I'll just say for my ride or die listeners who listen to almost all of my episodes, what Zach is speaking to here is what I tried to touch on in that episode last year that I put out on hand soap, right? I think it was called How to Buy Soap. And it was episode number 417. I'll link to it in the show notes if you missed it. But for those who listened, I'll give you a quick reminder. It's about putting on the antibacterial or the antimicrobial soap on our hands, rubbing them together for 20 seconds, and then washing the soap and everything the soap just killed down the drain. In that episode, I made the point that the rubbing of our hands together for 20 seconds provides enough friction to release the bacteria or the other microbes that we're looking to release. The friction is what does that. So if we're releasing them from our hands and then rinsing them down the drain, the question is, do they really need to be killed? I think is what you're getting at there, Zach, because when we kill them, there are potentially some health hazards for us, the person who's putting these very powerful chemicals on our bodies on the regular. And it's the same with cleaning our countertops. Are you wearing gloves when you're using these powerful chemicals with ammonia, with bleach, with 2-butoxyethanol? Like, are you wearing gloves when you're using these items and coming into contact with them on the regular? That's question one. And question two is, and these are rhetorical, by the way, Zach, I'm not expecting you to answer them, but question number two is, do you need to kill the stuff on your countertops, or can you just use friction to loosen it, gather it, and move it along? I think we really need to fundamentally question whether the way we're cleaning, which is kill everything in sight. And you made the point too, we're not even killing it. We need to question that though. Those of us who clean our spaces, we are perhaps unnecessarily exposing ourselves to very powerful chemicals that we don't need to. So the big ones, right? We know ammonia, we know bleach, but did you know that ammonia long-term exposures to low concentration, so cleaning with ammonia, a little bit of ammonia over a long period of time, yeah, that's linked to issues with your respiratory tract, but also inhalation of it can contribute to chronic respiratory illness. That's not something I want personally. Maybe you do. I don't know. But what about bleach? If we're just like using bleach on the regular, yes, it can irritate our eyes and our nose and again, our respiratory tract. But also if you have kids, research has found that kids who are exposed to bleach, like not that they're cleaning, but that they're in a home that is cleaned with bleach, they have a higher rate of developing respiratory tract infections. Oh my goodness. And then there's the 2-butoxyethanol problem. Yeah, like it's great at cutting grease and getting rid of stains, but exposure, low level but constant exposure can lead to blood disorders and liver and kidney damage. These are not like little consequences.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to say there?
It's, again, this is where the real rabbit hole for me has really opened my eyes on what are the actual compounds that are going into these products. If we talk about our disinfecting wipes, what do we do with disinfecting wipes? We grab a disinfecting wipe, we hold it in our hand. Our biggest organ in our body is our skin, and it absorbs. So what are those chemical compounds that are actually making up a lot of the products we use around the home? I agree with you. There's a ton of data around potential impacts of these compounds. For me, the interesting research I'm looking at is around, they're called BACs, but benzalkonium chlorides. They are more often than not used within our disinfectants. And there is a lot of research going into these BACs and the impacts to internal systems within the human body. The University of Washington right now is conducting a study around BACs, exposure to disinfectants around the home. And the study that I really found interesting that got released from Cedars-Sinai is around COVID-19 and our pandemic lifestyle changes that might have influenced the microbiome composition and microbiome resistance. It's a really interesting study from Cedars-Sinai on taking a population of people pre-COVID and a similar population post-COVID and looking at, again, internally, what has changed within our bodies, and the gut biome and the lack of gut biome diversity is one of the interesting data points that's come out around this. A lot of science is coming out around colon cancer, breast cancer. They're talking a lot about different biome makeups, where if you have a higher concentration of a certain biome, it certainly tends towards some issues with health impacts to individuals. So if you do research around BACs, benzalkonium chlorides, and that impact on our gut biome, again, we touch these disinfectants a lot because we grab the wipes with our hands. Nobody uses gloves to use their disinfecting wipes. Yeah, it's a super interesting piece of science right now. There's a ton of research going into it. But yeah, you talk about respiratory. I was down at the asthma conference, national conference in 2023. It's a very interesting conversation. There's a lot of data points that I would challenge people to go look at to say, gosh, what the heck's going on with asthma, allergies, eczema? Again, there's a lot of science behind it. I'm not a scientist, but gosh, it makes me question a lot.
And so to that point, let's talk about the fact that our big name cleaning products and mega corporations who make them, they capitalize on fear, right? We are scared of getting sick. We're scared of bacteria and viruses and E. coli and listeria and you name it, we're scared of it. And the pandemic really solidified those fears, right? So how are these big companies capitalizing on fear-based marketing? And if you have any examples, feel free, send them my way.
Yeah, so many thoughts here. Sometimes too many thoughts. So our last 4 years have just been a super interesting study on consumer psychology and how these big corporations are amazing. They are so good at what they do. I always look at it as it's not the fault of us as consumers because, again, they know our psychology. They know what they're doing. And when you look at COVID and you look at a lot of disinfectants, they capitalize on that moment to say it kills 99.9% of COVID. It was all over packaging. It was everywhere. What wasn't stated, what wasn't talked about is what are the best cleaning and disinfecting habits during the COVID-19 pandemic. The EPA specifically has a one-pager that says normal routine cleaning is enough in most situations to reduce the risk of spread of COVID-19. Cleaning. They said it, the EPA. But we have these bottles that say it kills 99% of COVID because, again, you look at mass media. Again, it's not just the big companies, it's mass media. It grabs the eyes, it grabs the attention, it gets us all wound up inside. And again, it's one of those that we as consumers, not just the big corporations, but even like media, like we have to have a conversation as a society to say, hey, let's like cool it a little bit. I get that you want to sell more. I get you want to make more profits. I get it. But can we like all have a real conversation here? So I think that when you look at the disinfecting wipes, I like that's the prime example to me where, again, they use that fear of, gosh, we don't want COVID. But the government's telling us that you actually don't need to disinfect much of anything to reduce the risk of spread. So it's this conversation between big corporations and in government on, is there a way to make sure that we are framing things correctly? Same thing with a multi-surface cleaner. Is it a cleaner or is it a disinfectant? If it kills everything, that should be a disinfectant, not a cleaner. So there's a lot of areas where it provides a misconception in our heads as consumers, and we're none the wiser. Again, it's hard for us to decipher all the information. Yeah, they're definitely going to capitalize on it. They've got billions of dollars. They have tons of headcount that are investing heavily in trying to understand consumer psychology to get us to buy more. And it's a part of business in America, frankly, and most of the world. And it's a part that it goes back to maybe the start of this conversation. We all have to take that moment a little bit deeper to think, why am I doing this?
Well, I'll just say before we take our break, Zach, that it's super interesting to me to listen closely to ads. Like, I know I'm a strange human being. I'm aware of it, but doing a close reading of ads really lights me up. And there is this one cleaning company at the moment. Actually, I'm sorry, it's not cleaning, it's laundry, but cleaning adjacent, let's say. So they have product A, which is a conventional product with conventional ingredients. And now they're running ads that are saying, oh, but product A gave my children rashes and was harming my daughter's health. So you should buy product B from our line, which is the clean line. So they're almost throwing product A under the bus because they realize that consumers are feeling a little skeptical, opening their eyes perhaps. They're throwing product A under the bus so that we all buy product B. Maybe there's an option C, which is not product A, not product B, but perhaps it's doing our own research and coming to our own conclusions and choosing option C. So we're going to talk about option C after our sponsor break, Zach, but I also want to talk about the microplastics issue because microfiber cloths are made of plastic. So get ready. Get your answer ready, Zach. I'm asking it.
I'll be ready. Do it.
All right. All right. Let's do that after our quick sponsor break. And we're back. Today I'm speaking with Zach Kiefer. He is the president of eCloth. And Zach, a public thank you for sponsoring some episodes of this show. I really appreciate it. However, that's not going to keep you out of the hot seat. I'm so sorry. So I've been using eCloth products and they're lovely. They're really well made. They're the opposite of single-use disposables. I believe they're meant to be used for at least a year, and I have not been using them for a year, but they are durable and made to withstand the test of time. So I'm thrilled that eCloth is getting away from the single-use disposable products, and especially with regard to the wipes, the single-use plastic disposables, like those are never a good choice. But microfiber is synonymous with microplastics. And I have had some listeners reach out and say, what's up with the microfibers? I'll read this one comment that I received. I'll just read it verbatim. I do have a concern about microfiber cloths being promoted. My understanding is that they break down and leave lots of microplastics in our environment. I'll just leave that there. There's more, but I'll stop there. What's your response to that?
Yeah, it is a really valid question. I get it often and I completely understand it. Plastics in our environment is a huge problem in microfiber. There is a large component of plastic in microfiber in general. The way that I see an opportunity with eCloth, we guarantee every single one of our cloths for a year. We know it's going to last over 300 washes. For eCloth, within our recommendations to consumers is on normal usage, you would wash a cloth roughly once per week. So if you think of 300 weeks, that's a lot of years of usage. When we hear and understand that concern and feedback around the microplastics, I will absolutely stand out there and say, eCloth is not the end all be all. Better option C, as you said before the break. There is going to be an option D, an option E, an option F. With science and technology moving as quickly as it is today, we at eCloth, we're staying at the forefront of that technology to give consumers that next best alternative. One of the areas that we are really adamant about is on the efficacy of being able to remove bacteria. And so that's where we're really pushing to understand what are the opportunities in new technologies that allow us to still see that same efficacy, same durability, change the conversation around the plastics. We definitely think that there will be that DEF option, and we are actively seeking that out. eCloth, we're really looking hard at the putting recycled material into the cloths. And the listeners will see some great products coming out with that recycled product going into the cloth. The one caveat is on the back end, the recyclability. That is a conversation that is still very much being pursued and trying to be understood. Within eCloth products, we weave two different fibers together, which creates a struggle on the recyclability side of the product. And that's the side that we still haven't figured out. We are actively pursuing that. But again, the ultimate, there's going to be that DEF option where I surely hope that we get away from plastic completely. But if you look at the product compared to what the other alternatives are today, if you get 5, 6, 7 years of use out of our product, is there a better alternative? I certainly don't know of one or haven't seen one, and believe that this is a great option to, in today's world, provide a better solution.
Okay, so you brought up some important points there. Number one is the recycled plastic option. So this might be a 2 or 3-part question. Part 1 is, I'm assuming that you're using only virgin plastic right now in your products. And if that's accurate, why not embrace 100% post-consumer recycled plastic in your products? Because there's plenty of it already on this planet. And so it would take some out and also create, a product that we can all use in our homes. But also, why does it have to be plastic? Why can't it be cotton or linen, hemp, like some other natural fiber? Why does it have to be plastic from the science side?
Yeah, so great questions. To the first question side of that on the why the virgin plastic, and the answer is yes. Currently in all of our products, it is virgin plastic. Again, the manufacturing technology behind the scenes is coming around quickly, like a lot of the science, and that's where we're quickly adapting to roll out products that hopefully can use that post-consumer plastic. It's a little bit harder than maybe everyone understands to be able to get and bring down that plastic and put it back into product like microfiber. And it kind of dovetails into that second question of why not a different type of material? The science behind e-cloth is within the manufacturing process. There are cavities that are created within the fibers. In microfiber cloth, direct gram and bacteria, they have opposite charges. They're going to scientifically attract. And those cavities act as a locking mechanism to actually remove from the surface that dirt, grime, and bacteria. So we are regulated by the EPA because of that removal of 99% bacteria claim. That's the scientific backed side of our product that we are trying to understand. Are there other scientific technologies out there to allow for that same efficacy to where we can have a very clean home and be able to rely on that based on the testing? And that's where we have not seen a better alternative yet. Keyword yet. It will come. That's the nature of our civilization, is there will be a better alternative. And we're trying to be a leading force for that change.
And I appreciate that. I must say, as a single human, I do not expect any company or corporation to be perfect, but I do expect them to heed new knowledge, technology, and pivot. That's what I look for. And I'll also say too, though, it does feel like a game of whack-a-mole. E-cloth is solving the problem of the harmful chemicals, not only for our own health, but also do those of us with environmental values, do we want to be flushing these very powerful chemicals down our drains and into the waterways on the regular? So there's that. So it's solving that problem. So we've whacked that mole, let's say, but then we've got the plastics problem. And so it's really hard. And I just want to thank the listeners who reached out to me with these concerns, because you're doing exactly what I was hoping you would do, which is asking these critical questions.
Yeah. And again, I look at it as I want to have these conversations because I know that e-cloth, there's going to be e-cloth V2 down the road. And so we need to have these really important conversations to understand out there in the consumer base. Again, I look at it and we whack a mole, and yeah, you whack the mole on potential spray chemicals and other chemicals that are out there. But again, you start going down the path you mentioned earlier, the paper towels. And it's an interesting conversation on the balancing act of which one is better? I've done the calculations. It's pretty concerning, but roughly as a world population, we bury Salt Lake City in 6 feet of paper towels every year because of our paper towel addiction, in my opinion. So is it better to use a very long lasting product like e-cloth, or is it better to bury Salt Lake City in 6 feet of paper towels every year using boreal forests from the north of Canada and whacking those down? Like, it's this interesting balancing conversation of, again, there's a lot of options out there and a lot of alternatives out there. And it's a great conversation for everybody to be having and critically thinking about.
Yeah. Is it better to cut down virgin trees to make those fluffy paper towels that we use one time and then we throw out? I don't know. I don't know if the research has been done.
Yeah.
But these are the questions I think that need to be had. Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly what I'm saying. I think it's a really interesting dynamic because it's a lot of again, it's where my mind sits and spins all the time while I'm working at eCloth. And again, to your point, I don't know the answer either. And there's a lot of alternatives, a lot of options out there. And from a sustainability standpoint, it is one that I think all of us have to sit down and just have those critical conversations, because there's a lot of research still needs to be done to understand what is the best alternative today. Yeah.
And for those of you, I don't know if there's many of you listening, but for those of you listening who don't care about the environment and you care really first and foremost about your family's health, eCloth is for you, right? There are no powerful, potentially hazardous chemicals at all. It's the product, the microfiber product, and water. So tell us one more time before we say goodbye, Zach, how does it work? Because again, we're in a post-COVID world, but even pre-COVID, like the thought of using just water to clean, that doesn't make sense. It's a major mental hurdle.
I get it. Yeah. So I'm going to caveat this. We at eCloth are regulated by the EPA. And so there are no added chemicals. So with the no added chemicals, cloth and water, we are really helping the consumer understand the way I think about it in my own life. There are very rare cases where you need to use any type of spray chemicals or added chemicals around the home. You can use eCloth and water for everything other than your toilet. There's stuff on your toilet. Please read those disinfectant instructions very well and disinfect everything around your toilet. But for the most part, in most of your home, and I personally, in the last 3 years, I don't use additional chemicals in my home. It's the science behind it that we at eCloth can put our name behind in being able to understand that through third-party testing with just water and eCloth, over 99% of bacteria is removed from hard surfaces with the products that make that claim. When you are using products that you're trying to clean a countertop surface, if you're trying to clean your floors, your windows, we have products that with just water and eCloth will scientifically remove over 99% of bacteria. There's a lot of information on our website. There's a lot, you can go out and read a lot of forums out there. There's a lot of people that are absolute believers and have been. The product's been around for 30 years. So there are people for 30 years that have been in this lifestyle that have great lives, that have no issues with health concerns by adapting a less chemical use lifestyle.
Well, one more time, Zach, where can we learn more about you and eCloth?
Yeah, best place to learn about eCloth and some of the products out there is at ecloth.com. The other opportunity is on our YouTube channel. Our YouTube channel has a lot of great videos of how to use the product, some of the science behind the product, and a lot of other information around our brand and what we're doing out there.
You've also offered up a coupon code, which I'll add into this week's show notes if anybody is interested. But Zach, I just want to thank you, because not only for sponsoring the show, which pays my bills and keeps my lights on. So thank you so much and keeps the show continuing, but also thank you for being willing to hear feedback and being willing to respond and potentially pivot. I don't know if those are qualities that are commonplace in 2024. So I thank you so much. I really enjoyed talking to you. Thank you.
You're really welcome. It was great to be on.
Listeners, that's a wrap. My friends, show notes are at mamaminimalist.com/487. Everything we talked about there, including some of the studies we cited, You can find them all there. Now, no eco tip this week, but just a quick heads up for next week. Next week is back to school week. I did it last year and I had so much fun. So let's do it again. On Tuesday's episode, we're talking about the lunchbox problem. So I don't know about you, but if you have children and you're packing lunches every single day, 5 days a week, the chore can get tedious, can it not? So Tuesday's interview is about how to make that job easier, but also some new and not boring lunchbox filling ideas. That's Tuesday. And then on Thursday, I'm re-airing an episode about the school supplies problem. I really liked that episode. And so if you missed it or if you need a refresher, that'll be Thursday's episode for back to school week. I will see you then. As always, reach out if you need me. As always, please leave this show a review to help it grow. It's been a slow summer over here on the podcast. Listenership has been down. So you can help this show rise in the algorithm by just leaving it a review. 30-second, easy breezy. I'll see you next week. Reach out if you need me and take care.